section of Convention Hopper, and today I'm going to be talking to one of our childhood legends, I assure you. He's been in he's brought so many of our favorite childhood voices to life. I mean, he's been two Ninja Turtles, he's been a biker mouse from Mars.
Very good.
He was, you wore the mask of Loki, you were the mask.
That's right.
Yes. And
I was Jim Carrey for a lot less money.
Yeah.
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 A Torontonian, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Better actor too.
Oh, thank
Yes.
you. God bless you, Paul.
And the two most effective G.I. Joes ever.
No kidding.
Yes.
And you're not just saying that because you feel sorry for the old guy. You're serious. Oh, thanks, buddy. Okay, I appreciate that.
But yeah, we're here to interview Rob Paulsen, and I'm sorry to everybody out there who's usually used to my friend Vlad doing this stuff. He's a friend of ours. He works with us. He's a communist. He'd sit here and he'd talk to you about Russian porn. And,
Oh, interesting.
yeah, all that other stuff.
Because that's my second favorite thing is Russian porn.
Really?
Yeah. Nice to meet you.
Man. Everybody loves Russian porn. I don't get it. We all have these really. I feel like I disagree with everyone on Hunt for Red October.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You don't like that?
Yeah.
No.
I actually did like it. It's just that Vlad thinks it's Russian porn.
I got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll leave that to Vlad.
Yes, of course. Well, for my first question, I'm going to I'd like to bring up the fact that you've been in well over 200, possibly even 250 cartoons. I'm not going to ask you. I'm not going to give you the standard question of do you love cartoons. I'm actually going to give you the more interesting question of why.
Why have I been in them?
Yes.
Oh, well, because it's how I pay my mortgage.
Well, also, and it's also like you don't be in 200 cartoons and be that prolific without a love for cartoons.
Oh, yeah. Oh, clearly. I see what you're saying. Well, yeah, I think that, gosh, I have been, I say this all the time, but I've been so incredibly fortunate. There are many, many terrific actors in Los Angeles, as you can imagine. And I somehow have managed to find my way into a lot of different shows. And so I understand the nature of your question is what is it that allows me to get that work and continue to get jobs? And I would like to think it's because I'm good at my work, but I think part of it also is I'm like everybody here. I am a certified animation, cartoon, pop culture geek, and I'm proud to wave my nerd flag high. I really am. But I was inspired, like most of us who do what I do, by not only voice actors, but by artists in general, people who set the bar really high in their respective fields, like painters, musicians, composers, authors. And when I was a kid, the cartoons that I really enjoyed were voiced primarily by, of course, Mel Blanc and June Foray and Buzz Butler and Hans Conried, Rocky and Bullwinkle and all that. Flintstones, the Warner Brothers stuff. And the level of performance was really high, really good, terrific, solid performances. Paul Frees, my God, incredible actors. And I love the feeling that I got watching good performances. I don't quite know how to quantify it, but all I can say is we all have actors and performers that we watch that affect us on a visceral level. And I wanted to do that. I thought that if I was good enough, I wanted to be able to give other audience members the same feeling that these world-class artists gave me. For two reasons. It was a challenge, and I want to make people feel. That's why we do what we do. That's why people write. That's why people dance. You want the audience to feel something. So in a long roundabout way of answering your very simple question, I'd like to think that I'm always getting more and more prolific at my work. And I never assumed that when I'd go in to read for The Mask or Pinky the Brain or Mighty Max or any of the other shows I've done in my career, that it was just about the funny voice. I got that it was about bringing a personality or organic nature to these characters.
Bringing them to life.
Yes, thank you. Bringing them to life in a much more, in a much deeper way than just the goofy voice. Because Bugs Bunny, Phil Lamar is a terrific actor. Phil Lamar's been on my podcast. And when you talk to Phil, he says one of his all-time favorite actors is Bugs Bunny. Now, Phil knows that Mel Blanc did Bugs Bunny, but Mel did it so well that Phil looks at Bugs as a terrific actor and was inspiring to Phil. And Phil is a brilliant performer. And so I think that's a pretty profound thing that he said. So I think that I get that, and I believe that part of the reason I continue to work, and same thing with Billy West, Maurice LaMarche, Phil Lamar, wonderful actors, Kevin Conroy's been doing Batman for 20 years, Mark Hamill, is because we get that the characters deserve to be fully fleshed out. They deserve to have the same love and the same dedication and the same intensity put into them. It's not just about the goofy voice. And so I think that's why many of us who are lucky enough to have a career doing this are continually successful, is because we understand that that's what makes the characters sing, it's what makes the characters live for years, and it's what makes them relevant for decades down the road. It's why you can watch Bugs and Daffy and Tweety and The Simpsons and Rocky and Bullwinkle 50 years down the road and get a kick out of it. Those characters were fully fleshed out. So at the risk of sounding too self-aggrandizing, I think that I get it, and I don't rest on my laurels. I'm always trying to get better, and I think the producers appreciate that, so I continue to get work.
Yeah. You want to give the people someone to love. You want to give them more and more people to have affection for these characters.
Yeah.
Some people, and you don't just give with your voice. If my research is right, you also give quite a bit to charity.
I do.
Yes. Would you like to talk a little bit about the causes that you?
Thank you, Paul. I would. That's so sweet of you for bringing that up. I would. When I come to conventions, I have to charge to sign autographs and stuff, because that's usually part of the gig. I mean, I have to make a little bit of money, and the convention says we'll pay you this much money, but you need to sign stuff, and we'll charge so they can make. It's a not. It's a. Everybody wants to have a good time, but you have to charge so somebody can make a little bit of money to put the next one on. But away from the convention aspect of things, and by the way, I think in terms of the value for dollar that you get going to a convention, it's fantastic, because a lot of these memories last a long time. It's very reasonable. But when I sign autographs at home, I never charge online for me. I charge $25 for my pictures, but all the money goes to charity, and I split it between my two favorite charities, which are the Wounded Warrior Project and another charity called Operation Smile. The Wounded Warrior Project, as you probably know, is for the folks in the military who are injured doing what. Tell you what, I'm such a supporter of the military. Because we have, you guys have an all-volunteer military here in Canada too, right?
Yes, there's no real draft.
Right, same here. And irrespective of your politics, irrespective of what you believe about war or whatever, that to me doesn't enter into it. What enters into it is that these men and women are put into harm's way on behalf of all of us. And they go do things that I could never even possibly imagine doing. And often they, for obvious reasons, get dinged up. And I believe that it's incumbent upon those of us who are lucky enough to, make a living in a free society to give back in any way we can. And whether you do it for the March of Dimes, or Autism Speaks, or you love animals, or cat adoption, whatever it is, I think it's important to give something back. I choose that for obvious reasons, and I've had the good fortune of working with the USO. And what's really cool is when you get to go hang out with a bunch of kick-ass soldiers. I mean, tough-ass dudes and girls, man. These guys know their stuff, right?
Yeah.
And within 60 seconds, I say, hello, nurses. Look at all these crazy soldiers. Hey, wow. Hey, God, I'm in a room with 60 killing machines. La, 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 la. And they're all of a sudden, they become 8-year-olds.
That's funnier than the opening scene to Iron Man.
Isn't that the greatest? And so what's great is I'm surrounded by all these Marines, and within 30 seconds, they're going, sir, would you please record Pinky on my phone as, Corporal Johnson's not here at the moment. Hello, Corporal Johnson's not here at the moment. And they're going, dude, call me, Pinky's on. How lovely is that? So that is one of my favorite charities. The other one is Operation Smile, which is a charity that has all these world-class maxillofacial surgeons are sent around the world to repair the cleft palates and the facial deformities that a lot of children are born with. And when you're in a country like Canada or the U.S., it's a difficult circumstance, but usually children in a bigger country like ours, in a wealthier country like the ones we have, are not relegated to sort of the trash heap of humanity. And when you're a child born with an affectation or a defect like that in Africa or Haiti or something, you got nothing. You got no prayer. And these really incredible surgeons repair these very difficult deformities for a couple $100 by the time it's done. It's just a couple $100 worth of stuff, and their incredible skill and love and passion. So that's where all the money that I sign pictures for goes to when people send me requests online.
That's fantastic.
And it's my pleasure. I have been an incredibly fortunate guy, and so it's the least I can do. But thank you for bringing that up. I'm grateful.
Honestly, I had a lot of respect for you when I found that out about you. I thought that was a great thing.
Thanks, Paul.
And I just
Appreciate that.
Sure. Well, back to your voice acting.
Yes.
You've worked with several animation companies, be it the WB, Disney, Hanna-Barbera. You've done Hanna-Barbera. Which was the most of a pleasure to work for? Which do you find had the most fun for Robert Paulsen?
Well, that's a good question. I've never been asked it quite that way. Obviously, the pat answer is, I love them all because they pay me, which is hugely wonderful that these people are nice enough to still pay me 25, 30 years later. I often say that if Disney is the happiest place on earth, that Warner Brothers is the funniest place on earth. And I did a lot of work for Disney and still continue to do a lot of work for Disney. I do all the Tinkerbell videos, which are terrific, and all the little girls love Tinkerbell.
My mom's a huge fan of Tinkerbell.
It's great. And I play Bubble. I play a character called Bubble who for some strange reason has a Scottish accent. I don't know why, but I do know that I'm very comfortable being a fairy. And there, I've said it right in front of Paul and everybody. The folks at Disney are just wonderful. The folks at Warner Brothers have been great because they've allowed me to do Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain and Hysteria and Tasmania and Tiny Toons. I won an Emmy on a show for them. So it's all great fun. It's hard to say that I have a preference. They all have their strengths, and they all allow me to explore various parts of my talent. You mentioned Biker Mice from Mars. That was originally a show for Marvel, and then it was ultimately became, I think, an independent company. We did the second iteration of the show. But I've never been hired by Warner Brothers or Disney to do a show in which I played a character like Throttle on Biker Mice from Mars. So, and Nickelodeon, I doing Turtles for them now. I did Jimmy Neutron for them, and Back at the Barnyard, and Fairly Odd Parents, and Tough Puppy, and Cat Scratch. So they've given me 10 years plus worth of work and opportunities to explore even different characters from the ones that I was noted for at Warner Brothers. So they all have not only great shows for people on both sides of the screen to ply their trade, but they give me all sorts of different ways to explore my work. So I'm very grateful.
Well, speaking of Warner Brothers, of course, the show that I most of us here know you best for is Animaniacs.
Oh, really? No kidding. Oh, you got it. No way.
Yeah.
Good for you.
It's one of my favorite cartoons growing up. It was so smart, and I just
Very
wanted
smart.
And I just wanted to know if you could take me through just a day in the life of Robert Paulsen in the 90s.
Oh, great.
On Animaniacs.
Well, on Animaniacs, we generally did one a week.
Okay.
And what happens is you get the script usually a couple of days in advance. But what actually, a typical day is that I would get up and go to do an Animaniacs episode, which generally takes 3 to 4 hours. Usually they have food for you there, and you have lunch, whatever, and then move on to another show in the afternoon from completely different studios. So at any given moment, I think there was a time in the 90s when I was doing 7 shows at the same time. So on Monday I might do Animaniacs in the afternoon, in the morning. In the afternoon, The Mask, and then Tuesday in the morning I might do Ninja Turtles. In the afternoon, Mighty Max, and then Wednesday in the morning I might do The Tick, and then in the afternoon do Goof Troop, and then Thursday, I could do Pinky and the Brain in the morning, and then in the afternoon do like a video game or whatever. So, and then on Friday I might have a music session for Animaniacs, which I do one of the songs. They had a lot of music in that show, which
Yeah.
was incredibly wonderful. So, and it's not too dissimilar now. I mean, I'm not doing 7 shows at the same time, but I'm doing Turtles again, and I'm doing Fairly Odd Parents, and I'm doing Tough Puppy at Nickelodeon, and I am have a recurring thing on the Looney Tunes show at Warner Brothers, doing my podcast, doing a lot of personal appearances. So it's a different, my workload is still the same, but I do a lot more traveling around. But yeah, it's just great. You're not limited by being on a set all day, so you can knock out Animaniacs in the morning and Darkwing Duck in the afternoon, or Tailspin in the morning and The Mask in the afternoon. It's a pretty cool gig.
Oh yeah.
And all you do is go to work and be creative and laugh and get free food.
The funny voices is part of it. The funny voices is part of it. But honestly, I think it would be just the coolest job in the world to just be able to sit there.
Paul, listen, man, I would never in a million years try to downplay how fortunate I am and how much fun it is. It is a blast to do what I do. And I've never lost that Jones to do it. It's great fun. I love it as much now as I ever did. And that's one of the reasons I love coming to these conventions, because I get to talk to folks like you and not only share these experiences, but do the panels where, as I said before,
As soon as I start doing this, you know, you do that.
Yes.
yeah, you can't help it. And how you can imagine how happy that makes me. I've got a room full of people whom I've never met, yet we have something really deep in common. We love the same shows. I happen to work on them, and you watch them. And it makes us all happy. I mean, there's really, you can't ask for more than that. If you go to a town full of people you've never met, and within 15 minutes, everybody's happy. What can, that's the best.
Were there any, as I believe it was mentioned before in today's panel, there were some pretty off the cuff sort of raunchy sort of lines in Animaniacs. It was known for those lines that got caught under the radar just as much as those lines that made you giggle when you were a kid. Were there any of the lines when you were working on Animaniacs that just, when you finished seeing the lines, just like, oh my god.
Oh, totally. There were a couple that we never thought would make it under the censor's nose, and one of which was one I mentioned today, which was fingerprints.
Yeah.
And as I recall in the episode, it's something about Yakko is like a detective, like in the Agatha Christie novels, and they're talking about finding fingerprints, and Dot walks in with Prince in her arms.
Oh.
She says, "I found Prince. It's time to fingerprints." And he's, "No, fingerprints, not fingerprints." Well, and we're all going, there's no way. There's no way.
Good night, everybody.
And totally sailed through, and to this day, if you go online, you can find, sort of a cultural reference of the most, the bluest Animaniacs material that got through. I mean, none of it was egregious, it was just kind of, although that one was pretty gnarly for what is supposed to be a kid's show.
And I think at the end of that quote, didn't she say, "I don't think so"?
Yeah, I don't think so. And, "Good night, everybody." Yeah, the same thing with Beethoven. He says, "I'm a pianist."
A penis? You can't say penis on television. Good night, everybody. Are you sure you can? Yeah, I'm a penis. He says, "I'm a pianist, a pianist." I said, don't say that. Stop it. Don't keep saying that, Ludwig. We're gonna get fired.
But yeah, there were several of those, and that was, oh God, Paul, from front to back, a really just a purely joyful experience. I worked at Warner Brothers for basically 10 years. It was Tiny Toons, Tasmania, Animaniacs, Pinky and the Brain, Hysteria, a few Freakazoids, and that basically took me from like 1989 actually on Tiny Toons to 1999, and an incredible run with Steven Spielberg and Andrea Romano and Richard Stone and Julie and Steve Bernstein doing the music, and Randy Rogel, who wrote the
United States, Canada,
Mexico, all that great music. Paul Rudd, John McCann, Tress MacNeille, Jess Harnell, Frank Welker, Bernadette Peters, Nancy Cartwright. I mean, it just goes on. Jeff Bennett, on and on and on. And not only did we get to be really close friends, but everybody made a living. We won Emmys. And I remember even saying to Tress MacNeille on more than one occasion, take a picture of this, because really, truly, unless you're on The Simpsons, it doesn't get any better than this. We're doing exactly what we want to do with people we would choose to spend our free time with, and we're getting paid. How on earth can that get any better? And then, 20 years later, people still love the show. So it's paid dividends way beyond the money. I probably sung Yakko's World for crowds, I don't know, 150 times. And the question comes up and every now and then, do you ever get tired of doing that? And the answer is never, because the problem is when people stop asking to hear it. And it does nothing but make people happy. And how can you even quantify that 20 years down the road? I don't make any more money by doing Yakko 100 times or Pinky 100 times. It just makes people 100 times more happy, and that's fantastic.
And those voices really have really gotten down deep in here. I would think that's
Thank you.
part of you.
Oh, absolutely. And what I was saying earlier today, and what is so gratifying for me as a performer, is that the audience, when I have a large crowd, it never fails that there may be 2, 3, 4, maybe a dozen people if the crowd's big enough, to whom just the characters I've done, and I'm only one of many, many actors, but just the characters I've done have had a profound effect on their lives. I don't mean just action figures. I mean certain people, it's my parents were getting a divorce and this got me through it, or my father and I didn't speak for 5 years and he just passed away 2 years ago, but the last year of his life, we found out that we love watching Pinky and the Brain on DVD. And I'll never forget that, right? Or my little sister had leukemia, and man, we watched Animaniacs, and it got her through the chemo treatments, and she's okay. Or my son was a big fan of Ninja Turtles, and he passed away, but I still have his turtle stuff, and when I think about it, it makes me happy that he got this, way beyond merchandising, way beyond commercial stuff. How can you, I had just a part in that, and I'm so grateful for that opportunity. So for those of you out there to whom these characters have had a larger effect, thank you. And that just is the ultimate compliment. So, pardon me, also one of the things that I think that all of those of us who do this also understand and we get, because, like I said, man, I'm a total geek and I'm one of this group. And we get that these characters are very, whether they're ones I do or not. And so I respect that. And so that's why there are certain things, if somebody asked me to do a, Pinky and the Brain or thing that's a little bit off color and all that, well, it's one thing to mess around with your buddies, but I'm not going to do something for broadcast that would be inappropriate for somebody who loves Pinky. And I don't need to do that.
You'll use Pinky for a joke, but you won't tell a bad Pinky joke.
Well, that's it. Like somebody recently said, we really would love to have you read 50 Shades of Grey, a little chunk of that as Pinky. And I said, I can't do that. It's not that I'm not a prude. I love a good dirty joke as much as the next guy, and trust me, if you heard the outtakes from Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain in many shows, you guys would pay money for them, and they're hysterical.
I've got the DVDs.
Right. They're not for public consumption, but they're hysterical, right? The stuff that was never on, But the fact is, with the way that the internet is so quick now, if I do something that I do it because it's kind of funny, whatever, it may be one of those people we were talking about who had a profound love for this character, and then they hear it and they kind of go, that character is really special to me, and everything was fine. And why did you really need to do that? And I don't need to do that. So I definitely have a line where I say, it's just not, I can't do that.
It's in good taste.
Thank you.
Well, next up, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I know a lot about that.
Yes. You were Raphael before, I believe.
Correct, on the first iteration, 25 years ago.
And you are now Donatello.
Yeah.
Does that get schizophrenic or what?
Dude, it's unbelievable. I find myself getting black and blue from pinching myself, because when we're working on the new show, I still have to stop and say, I can't believe I'm doing this 25 years later.
Yeah.
Which is one of the cool things about my gig, because nobody cares that I'm old enough to be your grandfather, practically, right? I love that about voice acting. It's about what you can bring to the party, not about whether your hair is the right color, or your boobs are the right size, or your muscles are the right size. It's not about that. So schizophrenic, no, but it does get a little I catch myself just going, God, I can't believe I'm doing this again. For several reasons. Who knew? We didn't. When we did the first batch of Turtles, we recorded them 25 years ago last year. July of 1987 is when we started recording it. So it was literally 25 years later that the new show started airing, and I got the gig again. And none of us had any idea that Ninja Turtles would become Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
And in between the one at the beginning and the one that's happening now, there have been several iterations and video games, T-shirts, blah, blah, you know, you name it. Well, it's all here. It's all walking around here. And to get another shot at, no pun intended, an evergreen franchise like that, that is so culturally significant, everybody, even your friend Vladimir in Russia, would know what the Ninja Turtles are. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
So I am incredibly fortunate that I got to do the first batch, and for a lot of people that would have been great. And it would have been for me. I mean, to always be the original, one of the 4 original Ninja Turtles is like being on a much smaller scale, but animation-wise, it's like being one of the Beatles, for God's sake. It's huge.
You're a superhero, basically.
Yeah, man. And to get another crack at it with Viacom's money and with Viacom's push behind it, with actors whom I've already liked. I was a big fan of Sean Astin's before. I got to work with him because of the Lord of the Rings stuff and other movies that he's done, Goonies. And Jason Biggs, man, I laughed my guts out at the American Pie movies. Greg Sipes, I loved from Beast Boy on Teen Titans. Mae Whitman, I've known since she was born, a wonderful actress. Kevin Michael Richardson, you know, such a terrific actor on the Cleveland Show and God knows what else. Clancy Brown, Nolan North, who plays Drake on all the Uncharted games, plays the Krang on the show, and just a wonderful actor who interestingly played Raphael in the 2007 Turtles TMNT Forever movie.
Right.
So he's one of my dearest friends. He was Raphael as well. So anyway, getting to work with all these great actors, with the history that I had on the show, and with Viacom putting their trust in me again, I figure if I live long enough, I can knock out all 4 Turtles. You know, if I live 50 more years.
That's it, cool.
My kids said to me, he said, Dad, you're going to be the answer to a Jeopardy question. So who knows? But yeah, I mean, clearly I have a tendency to ramble, but I just don't know how not to talk about how cool Turtles is the second time around. It's pretty wild.
How do you feel about Michael Bay's up-and-coming interpretation?
Well, I know how they feel.
Yeah.
And I get that. That's a tough question because I know how Hollywood works, and when you own the property, you can do whatever you want. Now, hopefully, you don't do something that absolutely flies in the face of your audience, especially when you know from initial feedback that maybe you're doing something that the majority of them don't like. However, Viacom, which is Paramount, Viacom owns Paramount, MTV, Nickelodeon, it's a big outfit.
Yeah.
They own it. They own it lock, stock, and turtle band. And if, you know, I do believe that they're not going to make the Turtles aliens anymore.
Really?
I don't know because I don't have anything to do with the movies so far. And you know, when we did the Turtles show initially and then they did the movies, I was not involved in the movies. So it may be that they don't hire us to do the voices in the movies too. I don't know. But my suspicion is that they already put the movie on hold for a year or so. So they heard you. They heard everybody out there. They don't take it lightly. They got a lot of money invested in this. So I don't know what they're going to do, and I have no control over that. My personal feeling is that as a fan, I don't know why they would deviate from what has been such a terrific formula and what is the mythology of the Turtles. One of the reasons fans love the Turtles, and you were probably not around or very young when the first one came around.
I was around. I remember actually my dad used to take me to the Blockbuster video in the corner, and my dad would let me pick out any VHS I wanted, any game I wanted. I always got your Turtle VHS.
Thank you. Clearly a smart boy.
Yes.
But the point is that what has made people want to watch it all these years has been this you know, the ethos and how they became turtles, Master Splinter and the ooze and all that stuff. So why you would want to deviate from that in a very substantial way, like making them aliens, I don't get. But you know what? That's not my job. As a fan, I don't understand it.
Yeah.
I did have the pleasure, and I didn't realize it until the other day. Michael Bay and I worked on a commercial together.
Yeah.
I don't know, do you guys get the Got Milk commercials up here?
Yeah, sometimes.
I did the very first one of those, which was a genius commercial. It was about a guy who's sitting, he's the night watchman in a museum. And the guy on the, he's listening to the radio, and the guy says, for $20,000 or $10,000, who shot Alexander Hamilton in that famous duel? And the answer is Aaron Burr. And this guy's eating a peanut butter sandwich, and he can't call, and he tries to pour milk in his house. I'm sorry, and I was the guy on the phone calling, I was the radio station guy. So it was a very classic commercial. And, oh God, 15 years, maybe longer. And it's all over YouTube. You can just go, you know, Got Milk, Aaron Burr, and you'll find it on YouTube. But then somebody the other day said, that commercial was directed by Michael Bay, and that was one of his first gigs. He directed that Got Milk, or probably several of them. But I've never had the pleasure of meeting him in person, and you know, a lot of people had problems with the Transformers things, but I don't know. I think they all made money, so the bottom line in Hollywood is that. And it's, you know, it's not supposed to be a charity. If they make money and it's substantial, then they're probably going to do another one. So my gut feeling is that they clearly got the message that people didn't like at least all of the stuff that they were going to do with the Turtles. And the way that the cartoon show is going, it's being very successful. The toys are selling out. The action figures are just gone. So people love them. And my suspicion is that they'll take that into account.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Now, speaking commercials and such like that, you've also done in the early to mid '80s some live action work as well. I think you actually you had a role on Cheers, didn't you?
No, I didn't work on Cheers. I did all of the promos for Cheers.
Right.
So I was sort of the voice of Cheers for, I don't know, 2 years, a couple hundred episodes. But no, I never worked on camera on that show.
Okay. I also thought I saw MacGyver in there.
I did. I did an episode of MacGyver, and I ended up being very good buddies with Rick Anderson because we played hockey together.
Oh, that's cool.
We played on a hockey team of a bunch of actors back in LA who go around playing the old timers of National Hockey League teams to raise money for charities, which, as you can imagine, was a huge thrill for me because I got to play hockey with Gordie Howe and Bobby Orr and Daryl Sittler and, oh my God, you know, all these guys. And Rick is also a really good hockey player. And he's a great guy. Last time I saw him was over a year, but I saw him, we go to the same motorcycle shop together.
Right.
So I walked in and I said, oh my God, there's MacGyver. Yeah, it was 1985, I think. Wow, yeah.
I can tell by your career choices that which of the two, voice acting and stage acting, you prefer. But are there any roles in like current TV shows or even on stage that you might possibly consider taking?
Oh my goodness, Paul. Well, and I appreciate you asking the question in that way. The truth is that I don't have a lot of juice in Hollywood to the extent that I call up somebody and say, I think I want to do this role. I get a lot more work given to me than I used to because I've been around and I think people understand that I know what I'm doing. But I still have to audition for stuff, and there are many shows I would love to work on. I wish I could call up a producer and say, I want to be in a show, so if you want to have me, give me a script.
Yeah.
The ones that I would love to work on, if I had the juice, is several. Modern Family kills me. I love that show. The scripts are really difficult. I mean, I can't think of anything that's better written. It's so clever, and it's very sharp. And, oh my God, love to work on Modern Family. Another great show on the, I think it's the IFC, the International, is it IFC? International Film Channel or whatever, called Portlandia. I would love to work on Portlandia.
I've heard of that.
Oh, it's great. It's with Fred Armisen from Saturday Night Live. Just a really, really wonderful show. Love to work on Portlandia, and I would love to work on Downton Abbey. Downton Abbey is so... Have you watched that show, Taylor? Oh. It's such a beautiful show. It's so well acted. It's a BBC show. It airs on PBS in the U.S. And it is a wonderful show. It takes place in the early part of last century, the 1920s, early. But my God, it's so beautifully acted. If I could be a part as a waiter for 2 seconds on that show. There are many. I mean, I would love to work on Game of Thrones because it'd be cool to have a sword and fire and kill dragons and all that stuff. So yeah, man, I just love to work. I really do. It so happens that I found my niche in voice work, and I think it's because I realized that I could do things with my voice that I would be hired for, that I never would be hired for on camera, that I would not be limited with my voice. So it's been a really great run. But there are always things that I would love to do. And who knows, maybe, I'll get more famous with my face because I'm doing a lot more personal appearance stuff. And sometimes you run into a guy who's a fan of your cartoon show and he's producing a live action show. And that happened last year. I did a thing for Nickelodeon called Big Time Rush, which is, there's a boy band and they kind of have their own show. I did an episode of that and had a ball. It was great.
Didn't you also do a project for the Annoying Orange guys?
I do. I'm on the Annoying Orange.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'm on that show. And that's a great story. That's a show where the young fella, Dane, basically put that together on his own with some technical expertise, learning how to incorporate human features on fruit and vegetables, put it on YouTube, got 500 million hits. Clearly could get a meeting in Hollywood because any executive with a pulse is going to say, you got how many hits? There are 300 million people in the United States, you got 500 million hits. That's pretty astonishing. And so, yeah, so he did his gig and they put it on Cartoon Network and he's producing it. It's got a great cast. I mean, I'm a semi-regular. I work on it. John DiMaggio, who plays Bender on Futurama, works on it. He's Jake the dog on Adventure Time. And, Tom Kenny, SpongeBob is on it. I'm on it. Tim Curry's on it. I was just with her. Oh, it's fantastic. And I was just with her last week. Felicia Day is on it. Just incredible folks. And it came from a guy with a vision who took advantage of what we're doing now, getting a chance to launch stuff on this new media. There you go. So that's why I encourage people your age to continue to do that, man. It's great.
We'll just take just a couple more questions. Do you have any sort of voice prep things that you do to get yourself ready for recording, like any sort of rituals or health things that you do to keep your throat healthy or
I slaughter a goat, and then I drink vodka and cranberry. So if you find a dead goat somewhere, you'll know that I'm prepared.
It sounds a lot like my Sunday.
Really? Good for you!
Yeah.
That's great. That's why I knew I liked this guy. It's like I can just see a little yellow sticky note on your refrigerator, don't forget, satanic ritual, bring goat.
Yes.
No, honestly, I don't. Unless it's a big singing session, if I know that I'm going to be singing in the morning and I've got a lot of fairly difficult stuff to do, then I will try to rest my voice a little bit like a day in advance. If I can, maybe not work the day before. And then drink a lot of tea and do a lot of la 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 la, a lot of typical vocal exercises that are, things with vowels, me, me, ma, mo, moo, or, ye, ye, ya, or ki, ke, ka, stuff like that stretches, But in terms of doing my regular gigs, not really. If I know going in advance, like I do a character for Fairly Odd Parents named Mark Chang.
Yeah.
So you know who Mark is?
I do.
Right. He doesn't have an indoor voice.
No.
Just so you know, Paul.
It's got horrible taste in the movie.
Yeah, he loves Vicky. And he's from Yugopatamia. So if I do this guy, I know that I'm good for about 20 minutes and then I'm done. Because it's just blowing my cords out, bro.
I can imagine.
Yeah, that one is one where you're just screaming,
That'll destroy
But generally, it doesn't require a lot of, it requires more focus than anything. It's not about the physical aspects of it. If you're a guy like D. Baker or Welker, who does animals and monsters and that type of stuff, really takes it out of you.
Oh, yeah. And any advice out there for any aspiring voice actors?
My best advice to any of you out there is to perform live. You can do as much voice work as you want and practice your cool stuff. We've been talking about YouTube. You've got access to free ways to get your stuff out there, which is all great. But everybody whom I work with maybe 2 exceptions, everybody, Maurice LaMarche, Frank Welker, Peter Cullen, Mark Hamill, you name it. All the voice actors whom you guys probably enjoy, all of us, including myself, started doing live performance.
Right.
I mean, started, doing live performance.
Okay.
Theater, improv, in my case it was music, then got into theater. And I would absolutely encourage young voice actors or wannabe voice actors out there to do that, because the best characters, as we talked about at the beginning, come from a sense of deep appreciation, right? And a way to create the character from the inside. It's not just about the voice. So I would encourage you to do all that stuff, because it teaches you how to use your body and how to be in front of people. And even though you may, like most of my days are spent in studios, I'm around other actors, not a proper audience per se, but it really helps you a lot in the audition process. Because even if you got 4 or 5 people sitting behind a desk, you are not inhibited by the feeling of being in front of people. And it's just great training, and it teaches you how to think on your feet, especially improv. Do a lot of improv. And music. It's helped me a lot. Not everybody is necessarily a good singer, but that doesn't mean that you can't sing as a character badly. Or just because you're, I mean, I get hired to sing, and often they'll say, we don't want them to sound great, you kind of find the notes and hit bad notes and all that, but then having that facility and not being afraid to use it is often what's also going to get you a job. And Billy West says it, and it's really true. Try to cultivate a sense of fearlessness. Don't be afraid. Don't be encumbered by your physicality. And that's also where improv helps you a lot, because you might be a talking grape or something, and we want it to be absurd. We want you to be able to go outside your own sort of box.
Otherwise, I couldn't be a talking cat from Yugopatamia.
Or a weird guy in the water tower. Or a talking lab mouse.
Or a turtle. Or a little rotund guy with an inhaler. So swing for the fences and have a great time.
All right, one last question. Pinky, are you pondering what I'm pondering?
I think so, Paul, but if we didn't have ears, we'd look like weasels.
Good night, everybody.